I watched my sister get handcuffed through a laptop screen. She was standing in some lawyer's office in Indianapolis, wearing her nice dress, her pearl earrings, her "I'm a respectable woman" face. And when the detective said, "You're under arrest," she didn't cry. She didn't go quiet. She looked straight at the camera like she somehow knew I was watching, and she said, she was never supposed to talk. She was never supposed to talk. She wasn't talking about me. She was talking about her own daughter. Her 9-year-old little girl who everyone, and I mean everyone, believed hadn't spoken a single word in 6 years. 6 days earlier, I didn't know any of this. 6 days earlier, I was just a tired aunt doing her sister a favor. 6 days earlier, I still believed the biggest lie my family had ever told me. Let me take you back. My name is Diane Hartley. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a forensic auditor at a mid-size firm in Portland, Oregon. Yeah, I know, real glamorous stuff. While other people are out living their best lives posting sunset pics from Tulum, I'm the one finding where money disappears to. My therapist says I became an auditor because I have trust issues and I need to verify everything. My therapist is probably right. But here's the thing about being someone who tracks lies for a living. You'd think I'd be harder to fool. You'd think I'd see it coming when the person lying to me was my own blood. I didn't. Not even close. Let me tell you about my sister Meredith. She's 45, 7 years older than me, and growing up she was everything I wasn't. Prom queen, student council, the daughter who made my parents beam at every dinner table conversation. I was the quiet one in the corner doing math homework for fun. Meredith had this thing, this ability to walk into any room and make everyone feel like she was their best friend. Teachers loved her. Neighbors loved her. Our parents, God rest them, they loved us both, but Meredith had this way of making you feel like loving her was a privilege she was granting you. She married Troy Whitmore when I was in my mid-20s. Troy was fine, I guess. Decent looking, kind of bland, the type of guy who laughs too loud at his own jokes and sweats when he's nervous, which was always. He worked in pharmaceutical sales and seemed to do whatever Meredith told him. I never thought much about their dynamic back then. I just figured some guys are like that. Some guys let their wives run the show, and honestly, Meredith was the type of woman who'd run the show whether you let her or not. Then came Chloe. Oh man. Chloe. When Meredith had Chloe, I was living in Denver, chasing a promotion that honestly wasn't even worth it. I'd fly home to Portland for holidays, maybe a long weekend here and there, but I wasn't around for those early years. I missed Chloe's first steps. I missed her first words. I missed a lot. And that's something that still sits heavy on me, because if I'd been there, maybe I would have noticed sooner. Maybe I would have caught it. By the time Chloe was 3, Meredith had told everyone, and I mean the whole family, the neighbors, the pediatrician, everyone, that Chloe had a rare neurological condition that affected her speech. Born with it, she said. Nothing they could do. The doctors confirmed she'd likely never speak. Meredith was so brave about it too, if you asked anyone in our circle. Oh, that poor woman, raising a special needs child with such grace. She even got some award from the local Parents Association, dedicated Mother of the Year. She kept the plaque on her mantle like a trophy. I saw it every time I visited. Made me feel proud of her. Huh. Proud. That word tastes like ash in my mouth now. So Chloe communicated through an iPad. Text-to-speech app, the whole setup. And you know what, she was sharp. You could see it in her eyes, these huge dark brown eyes that watched everything. I mean everything. When I'd visit and read to her, she'd curl up against my side and I could feel her whole body relax, like my voice was the one safe thing in her world. We had this thing where I'd bring her a new book every time I came over. Chapter books, picture books, science books. That kid devoured them all. She'd type out her reactions on the iPad. The dragon part was the best. Read the frog chapter again. Aunt Diane, you do the best voices. I loved that kid more than I knew how to say. Even through a screen and a robot voice on an iPad, we had something real. Something that didn't need words. Now, our dad, Frank Hartley, passed away about 4 years ago. Heart attack, quick and sudden, the kind of death that doesn't give you time to say goodbye. Dad was a retired electrician, quiet guy, hands always busy fixing something. He was the foundation of our family, you know. The guy who didn't say much but held everything together. When he died, it was like someone pulled the support beam out from under the whole house. And then Mom. Gloria. She got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer about 2 years after Dad. The bad kind. Well, they're all bad, but this one was fast and mean and took her apart piece by piece. I moved back to Portland when she got the diagnosis. Gave up a good position in Denver, didn't think twice. I needed to be close. I needed to help. During those last months with Mom, I started spending way more time with Chloe. And even without words, that kid and I built something that I now realize was the most honest relationship in my entire family. Everyone else was performing. Chloe and I were just real. Mom passed 16 months ago. She left behind a trust, about $1.4 million. Everything her and Dad had saved, his life insurance, the whole nest egg of 2 people who worked hard their entire lives. The terms were specific. Both Meredith and I had to sign off on any major withdrawals. Mom also left me the family house outright since Meredith already owned her own property. I thought that was fair. Now I think Mom was trying to give me something Meredith couldn't get her hands on. Alright, so that's the backdrop. That's the family. The golden older sister, the quiet younger one, the silent niece, and a trust fund sitting in the middle of it all like a ticking time bomb nobody could hear. Except Chloe heard it. Chloe heard everything. That Saturday started like any other. I was in my apartment, coffee, quiet morning, reviewing some case files because apparently I don't know how to take a day off. My phone rang. Meredith. And the second I heard her voice, I should have known something was up because she was using the voice. You know the one. That sugary, buttery, I need something from you voice that every woman on this planet can recognize in about half a second. Diane, honey, I have the hugest favor to ask you. Turns out she and Troy had booked a last-minute anniversary trip. 5 days at some resort in Scottsdale. Very romantic, very spontaneous. And they needed someone to watch Chloe. Of course I said yes. I always said yes to Meredith. That was the pattern, right? She asked, I delivered. She needed, I provided. And honestly, I was excited to spend time with Chloe. 5 whole days with my favorite kid? Sign me up. I drove over to their place around noon. Meredith's house always looked like it belonged in a magazine. Perfect lawn, perfect shutters, one of those front porches with the seasonal wreath that she changed out every 6 weeks like clockwork. She met me at the door with a hug. Now let me be clear. Meredith does not hug. Meredith does the side lean air kiss thing that sorority girls do. An actual, full, both arms hug. That was a red flag the size of Texas and I just smiled right through it. You're a lifesaver, Dee. Seriously, I don't know what I'd do without you. Troy was loading bags into their car. He barely looked at me. Quick wave, mumbled hey, and then he went back to shoving suitcases in the trunk. He was sweating. But Troy was always sweating, so I filed that under Troy being Troy and moved on. Meredith walked me through the house like I'd never been there before. Here's the kitchen, here's Chloe's room, here's how the TV remote works. And then she opened the fridge and pulled out this big mason jar with a green lid. Smoothie mix, she said, pressing it into my hands. I made it special for you. Spinach, ginger, turmeric, all the good stuff. You've been working so hard, Dee, you look exhausted. You need to take better care of yourself. Something about the way she said it felt rehearsed. Like she'd practiced that little health-concerned sister speech in the mirror. But I smiled and said thanks because that is what I always did with Meredith. Smile, say thanks, don't push back, don't question, just be grateful the golden child is paying attention to you. She has always been like that, by the way. The unsolicited advice, the little jabs wrapped in concern. When I went through a nasty breakup at 27, Meredith's solution was a juice cleanse, a gym membership, and a condescending speech about how men can sense desperation. Manifest confidence, Diane, she'd said, like heartbreak was a branding problem. The car honked. Meredith hugged me again, second hug, absolutely unhinged behavior for her, and rushed out. Troy followed like a shadow. I watched their car pull out of the driveway, watched it turn the corner, watched it disappear. Then I closed the front door. I turned around with a big smile, ready to ask Chloe what she wanted to do first. I was thinking maybe we could bake something, start a movie, crack open one of the new books I'd brought. But Chloe wasn't reaching for her iPad. She wasn't typing anything. She was just standing there in the hallway, staring at me with an expression I had never, not once in 9 years, seen on her face. And then my niece, the child I had believed was born mute, the little girl who hadn't made a sound since she was a toddler, opened her mouth. Aunt Diane. Don't drink what Mom made you. She's planning something really bad. Her voice was clear. Not raspy, not hesitant, not rusty from years of silence. Clear and steady, like she'd been talking her whole life but just chose not to. My knees almost gave out. I grabbed the edge of the hallway table because the room was spinning and my heart was hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears, and I actually thought for a second, that I was losing my mind. That the stress had finally cracked something in my brain and I was hallucinating. Chloe. I whispered it. My voice was shaking so bad I barely got her name out. You can talk. She nodded. Those big brown eyes, steady as stone. I always could, Aunt Diane. Mommy made me stop. I sank down right there in the hallway. Just dropped to the floor. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. And I looked at this child, this tiny person who I thought I knew, who I thought I understood, and I realized I didn't know anything. Not one single thing about my own family was what I thought it was. What do you mean she made you stop? And sitting there on the floor of her mother's perfect hallway, my 9-year-old niece told me a story that burned my entire life to the ground. Chloe was never mute. There was no neurological condition. There was no rare disorder. That was all a lie. Until she was 3, Chloe talked like any other toddler. Babbling, first words, little songs, the whole beautiful noisy mess of a kid learning language. She said mama. She said dada. She said juice please, and read again, and I love you night night. She was normal. Completely, perfectly normal. Then one afternoon, it all stopped. Chloe was upstairs playing in her room. She got thirsty and padded downstairs to get some water. Meredith was in the kitchen on the phone. She didn't hear Chloe come down. Didn't see the little girl standing in the doorway in her socks, listening. Chloe heard words. She was 3. She didn't understand most of them. But some of them she knew. Aunt Diane. Money. Out of the way. Once Troy's handled, then Mom, and then we take everything. She trusts me completely. She still looks up to me like we're kids. It's honestly pathetic. Pathetic. My sister called me pathetic while planning to steal everything from me. And a 3-year-old was the only witness. The next day, because kids are kids and they don't know what secrets are yet, Chloe went to Meredith and asked, Mommy, what does out of the way mean? And that's when everything changed. Chloe told me that Meredith's face went completely blank. Like someone hit a switch and all the warmth just vanished. She grabbed Chloe by both arms, hard enough to leave marks, and she got down in her face. If you ever talk again, to anyone, ever, something terrible is going to happen to Aunt Diane. Your voice is dangerous, Chloe. Every word you say hurts her. If you love your aunt, you will never, ever make another sound. Do you understand me? I'm going to need a second here because even now, saying this out loud, I can barely get through it. She was 3. 3 years old. She didn't understand manipulation or coercive control or any of those words. She just understood that her mommy said her voice could hurt the person she loved most in the world. And so Chloe, at 3 years old, made a decision that most adults couldn't make. She stopped talking. Completely. Cold. Not because something was wrong with her brain. Because she loved me that much. 6 years. 6 years of silence. 6 years of fear. 6 years of believing that every word she wanted to say was a weapon pointed at me. And Meredith, oh, Meredith played it perfectly. She took Chloe to specialists. She put on the concerned mother face. She collected the selective mutism diagnosis but told everyone it was neurological, something Chloe was born with, nothing to be done. She made sure nobody saw the real medical records. She crafted the whole story and everyone bought it. Me, the extended family, the neighbors, the school. Everyone. Because who questions a mother about her own child? I was sitting on that hallway floor crying so hard I couldn't see straight. And Chloe, this tiny warrior, she wasn't done. Being quiet made me invisible, she said. Grown-ups forget I'm there. They say things right in front of me because they think I can't understand or I can't tell anyone even if I do. So I watched. I watched everything. And what she watched was a masterclass in deception. She saw Meredith practicing my signature on scrap paper, over and over, dozens of times until it looked almost right. She heard phone calls about the trust, about transferring assets, about getting everything moved before Diane catches on. She watched Troy become more and more afraid of his own wife, agreeing to everything, questioning nothing. She saw her mother perform for neighbors, for teachers, for church friends, the flawless mask of a devoted parent sacrificing for her disabled child. And then, 2 nights before that Saturday, Chloe crept to the top of the stairs one more time. She heard her parents in the kitchen. Planning. The smoothie mix will knock her out, Meredith said. Not enough to really hurt her, just enough to put her in the ER. Severe stomach problems, extreme fatigue. She'll be down for days. What about Chloe? Troy asked. The neighbor, Mrs. Kemp. I already told her Diane has episodes sometimes, anxiety attacks, that kind of thing. She bought it completely. And while Diane's in the hospital, we drive to Indianapolis. I have a lawyer set up. All the forged paperwork is ready. We transfer the entire trust into my name. By the time she recovers, it's done. She won't be able to prove a thing. No resort. No Scottsdale anniversary. Just a scheme to drug me, forge my name, and steal $1.4 million. My own sister. Chloe broke 6 years of silence to save me. I pulled her into my arms so tight and I just held her. This child gave up her voice, her childhood, her chance to be normal, and she did it because she loved me. And when it truly mattered, when the stakes were life and death, she found the courage to speak. You saved me, I whispered into her hair. You know that, right? You saved me, Chloe. She hugged me back. Small arms, fierce grip. I couldn't let Mommy hurt you, Aunt Diane. Not anymore. I'm done being quiet. I looked at that mason jar sitting on the kitchen counter. Green lid. Homemade smoothie mix. Evidence. My tears dried up and something cold and focused settled inside my chest. The kind of feeling I get when I'm deep in an audit and I find the thread, the one loose number that unravels the whole fraud. Meredith thought she had 5 days. She thought I'd be in a hospital bed, drugged and helpless while she drove to Indianapolis and stole my future. She thought her daughter would stay silent forever. She was wrong about all of it. First call I made was to Val Soto. Val and I met freshman year at Oregon State. She went into nursing, I went into numbers, but we stayed tight. Val is the kind of friend who shows up at your apartment with wine and a baseball bat when your ex is acting crazy. Not to use the bat. Just to have options. I trusted her with my life. She picked up on the first ring. Dee, what's going on? Val, I need you at Meredith's house right now. Something happened and I can't explain it on the phone. Just please come. She didn't ask a single question. 35 minutes later she was at the door, still in her scrubs from a 12-hour shift, hair in a disaster bun, looking like she was ready to fight somebody or save somebody, whichever the situation required. I told her everything. All of it. The smoothie, the plan, and Chloe, sweet silent Chloe, who had broken 6 years of silence to warn me. When I finished, Val was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked over to where Chloe was sitting on the couch and knelt down in front of her. Kid, you are the toughest human being I have ever met in my life. And I work in an ER. I've met some tough people. Chloe almost smiled. Almost. Val stood up, all business. Okay. First, that smoothie gets tested. I know a lab tech at Providence who owes me a favor. She can run a rush talk screen tonight. If there's anything wrong with it, we'll know by morning. She pulled on gloves, because yeah, she just had latex gloves in her bag like that's normal, and took a sample from the mason jar. Sealed it up, labeled it. Who puts drugs in a smoothie, she muttered. Your sister really watched a Lifetime movie and said goals, huh? I almost laughed. Almost. Okay, Val said, what else do we have? If Meredith is running a con this big, she's got paperwork. She keeps everything. Where would she hide it? I looked at Chloe. Mommy's office, Chloe said. There's a locked drawer in the desk. I know the combination. How? I asked. I watched her open it. Lots of times. She never noticed me standing there. She paused and there was something so sad and so steady in her voice when she said it. Nobody ever notices the quiet kid. She led us to Meredith's home office. Pristine, organized, everything in its place. A big desk, filing cabinets, and one drawer with a digital keypad lock. Chloe typed in 4 numbers. 0621, June 21st, Meredith and Troy's anniversary. The drawer clicked open. And what was inside made my blood run cold. Forged bank authorization forms with my signature on them. Except it wasn't my signature. It was close, I'll give her that, but the curve on my capital D was wrong. Anyone who actually knew my handwriting would catch it. Meredith practiced, but she wasn't me. Bank statements from the trust account showing withdrawal after withdrawal over the past 14 months. Always under $15,000. Always just below the federal reporting threshold. She'd done her homework. The total came to roughly $190,000. Stolen from me, from our parents' legacy, by my own sister, while I trusted her completely. Printed emails between Meredith and an attorney in Indianapolis named Douglas Vance. They discussed emergency transfer of trust assets and referenced my cognitive decline and inability to manage financial responsibilities. The meeting was set for day 4 of their fake vacation. And then, and this is the one that almost broke me, a file labeled Diane, Behavioral Concerns. Inside were pages and pages in Meredith's handwriting. Dated entries going back over a year describing my supposed erratic behavior, my depression, my paranoid episodes, my emotional instability. All of it fabricated. Every single word, a lie. She was building a paper trail to have me declared mentally unfit. So that if I ever fought back, if I ever challenged any of it, she could hold up this file and say, see? She's crazy. You can't trust anything she says. My sister was going to steal my money and then steal my credibility. Leave me with nothing. Not even my own name. Val photographed every single page. Every document, every date, every forged signature. This isn't some heat-of-the-moment thing, Diane. This is planned. This is calculated. She's been building this for over a year. This is... Val shook her head. This is genuinely evil. I was already sorting the information in my head. Auditor brain fully activated. Dates, amounts, patterns, the monthly withdrawal cadence, the signature inconsistencies. Numbers don't lie. And these numbers told a story my sister never wanted anyone to read. Then Val's phone buzzed. Her lab contact had rushed the analysis on the smoothie. The results. A concentrated combination of a powerful laxative compound and a sedative herb. Non-lethal but absolutely devastating. Anyone who drank it would be violently ill and barely conscious for 2 to 3 days. Hospital level sick. Exactly what Chloe described. Meredith wasn't trying to kill me. She was too smart for that. She just needed me completely out of commission while she drove to Indianapolis and took everything. I thought about my emergency savings. $11,000 in a separate account at a completely different bank. Nobody knew about it. Not Meredith, not Troy, not anyone. A financial advisor told me years ago, always have walk-away money. Money that nobody else can touch. I'd followed that advice quietly, never mentioned it. Now that money was going to fund the fight of my life. Sometimes being boring and careful saves you. There was one more call to make. Marcus Webb. We were in the same study group junior year. He went to law school, I went into auditing. Now he was an assistant district attorney in Multnomah County. I called him and laid out everything. The forged documents, the stolen money, the drugged smoothie, and what Meredith had done to her own daughter. When I finished there was a long silence. Diane, he said. This is fraud, forgery, attempted poisoning, and what she did to Chloe, that's coercive control of a minor. Psychological abuse. This is serious on every level. What do I do? You let me handle the legal side. I'll coordinate with Portland PD and loop in the FBI. This crosses state lines, which makes it federal. We'll reach out to the Indianapolis attorney too, find out if he's a willing participant or if she played him. And Diane, this is critical, Meredith cannot know you're onto her. If she gets spooked she could run. You need to make her believe her plan is working perfectly. I looked at that mason jar on the counter. Green lid. Sitting there like it was harmless. I had to pretend I drank it. Pretend I was sick. Pretend I was helpless and alone while my sister drove to Indianapolis to rob me blind. I could do that. 3 days of acting. The performance of a lifetime. Then I found the letters. They were at the bottom of the locked drawer, underneath old tax returns. Handwritten. Dated during our mother's final weeks. Letters from Meredith to our mom, Gloria, written while she was dying. I need you to hear what my sister wrote to our dying mother. She demanded that Gloria change the will. Cut me out completely. Leave everything to Meredith. Diane is single, she doesn't have a family to support. I have a daughter. I have responsibilities. You always favored her anyway. If you ever really loved me, you'll make this right. She guilt-tripped a dying woman. She tried to weaponize our mother's cancer against me. And I found Mom's response. Written on her personal stationery, the cream-colored paper with the little blue flowers she loved. Her handwriting was shaky, she was so weak by then, but the words were iron. I will not punish Diane for being responsible. I will not reward you for being selfish. The trust stays equal. This discussion is over. I love you, Meredith, but I am deeply disappointed in who you have become. Mom saw it. Even at the end, even through the fog of pain and medication, Gloria Hartley saw exactly what her oldest daughter was. And she held the line. She protected me with some of the last words she ever wrote. I sat on that office floor holding my mother's letter and I cried so hard my chest hurt. Not for myself. For Mom. For the betrayal she carried to her grave. Aunt Diane? Chloe's small voice from the doorway. Yeah, sweetheart. Are those letters from Grandma? Yeah. She came and sat down next to me. Her little hand found mine. Grandma told me something once. When Mommy wasn't in the room. She said, keep your eyes open, little one. Something's not right with your mama's heart. I thought she meant mommy was sick. Like with her actual heart. I didn't understand then. But I think Grandma knew. I think she always knew. I squeezed her hand. Yeah, baby. Grandma always saw people clearly. Do you think she knew about me? That I wasn't really mute? I thought about my mother. Sharp until the very end. The kind of woman who noticed everything but chose her battles. I think Grandma trusted me to figure it out. And she trusted you to be brave when it mattered most. Chloe leaned against my shoulder. That same lean. The one she'd done 100 times while I read to her. Only now, she whispered something. I'm glad I talked. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Now before I tell you how this all came crashing down on Meredith, let me say something real quick. On this channel, I take real stories that people share on Reddit, Quora, and other forums, and I break them down not just for the drama, but for the psychology behind it. Why people manipulate. How they get away with it. And how you can spot it before it wrecks your life. If that sounds like something you need, and honestly most of us do, hit that subscribe button right now. You're gonna want to be here for what comes next. Because before I launch into the revenge, I need to break something down for you. I need you to understand what Meredith actually is. Not just a bad sister. Not just greedy. What she did has names. Clinical, documented, studied names. And once you learn them, you will start seeing these patterns everywhere. In your family. In your workplace. Maybe in your own house. What Meredith ran on me, on Chloe, on our dying mother, that's textbook covert narcissism. Not the loud, obvious kind you see in movies. The quiet kind. The kind that shows up with a smoothie and a smile. Clinical psychologists describe covert narcissists as people who weaponize empathy. They don't scream at you. They care at you. They smother you with concern that's actually control. Every time Meredith told me I looked tired, every time she said I was working too hard, she wasn't worried about me. She was laying groundwork. Planting seeds so that later, when she needed people to believe I was unstable, they'd already half believe it. And what she did to Chloe, that's coercive control. It's a term that originally came out of domestic violence research by a scholar named Evan Stark. It means using fear, isolation, and psychological manipulation to dominate someone without ever leaving a bruise that shows. Meredith didn't lock Chloe in a room. She didn't need to. She locked her inside her own silence. She turned a 3-year-old's love for me into a cage. That is, and I'm not being dramatic here, one of the cruelest things I have ever heard of a parent doing to a child. She stole her daughter's voice and then won Mother of the Year for it. Let that sink in. And the financial piece, the withdrawals under $15,000 to avoid federal reporting, that's called structuring. It's literally a federal crime on its own. Banks are required to report transactions over $10,000. Meredith kept hers just under the radar. She didn't stumble into that. She researched it. That's not impulsive. That's a person who sat down, studied the system, and figured out exactly how to game it. I'm telling you all of this because I need you to understand. People like Meredith don't come at you with a knife. They come at you with a hug and a smoothie and a concerned look on their face. And by the time you realize what's happening, they've already taken everything. But not this time. Because a 9-year-old girl was braver than every adult in the room. Day 2, I called Meredith's voicemail and gave the performance of my life. I made my voice weak, shaky, pathetic. Meredith, something's really wrong. I've been throwing up all night. I can barely stand. I'm so dizzy. I think I need to go to the ER. Chloe's fine, Mrs. Kemp can take her. I'm so sorry to mess up your trip. Her response? A text. Not a call. Not a frantic, which hospital, I'm coming home. A text. Oh no. Feel better, babe. Don't worry about Chloe, Mrs. K is great. Rest up, with a pink heart emoji. Her sister might be in the emergency room and she sends a cartoon heart. Ha. I've gotten more concerned responses from DoorDash drivers when my order was late. She didn't ask which hospital. Didn't ask to talk to Chloe. Nothing. Val read the text over my shoulder and just said, "Girl, your sister is actually broken inside." Day 3, I kept feeding her updates. Still so sick. Doctor thinks severe food reaction. So weak. Please don't come home, enjoy your trip. Each message made me want to shower. But Marcus said keep her comfortable, keep her confident, so I did. Meanwhile, Troy, genius that he is, posted a coffee shop selfie on Instagram. Geotagged. Indianapolis, Indiana. Not Scottsdale. Not a resort. Exactly where Chloe said they'd be. Meredith planned a perfect crime and married the one man dumb enough to blow it with a latte pic. That same day, Marcus arranged for a child advocacy specialist to take Chloe's formal statement. Videotaped, child psychologist present, every legal protocol followed. Chloe was nervous. She sat in a chair way too big for her, feet swinging above the floor. But when the questions started, she sat up straight and she used her voice. She told them everything. The phone call at age 3. The threats. The 6 years of silence. The night she heard them plan the smoothie. When it was over she looked at me through the observation window and said, "That's the most I've talked in 6 years. My voice is tired. But it feels good. Like I was holding my breath underwater and I finally came up." Day 4. Indianapolis. 10 a.m. I watched through a secure video feed that Marcus set up. Chloe was next to me, holding my hand. Val on the other side. Meredith walked into Douglas Vance's law office looking like she owned the place. Perfect outfit, confident walk, leather folder full of forged documents tucked under her arm. Troy trailed behind her looking like a man walking into his own execution. They sat down. And instead of Douglas Vance alone, there were 2 detectives waiting at the table. I watched Meredith's face cycle through confusion, calculation, and then the decision to bluff. She tried. Oh, she tried. Smiled, cooperated, explained away every question with that honey voice. Then the detective placed my real signature next to the forged one. Then the bank records. Then the lab results from the smoothie. And then she played Chloe's recorded testimony. Mommy told me if I ever talked again, something bad would happen to Aunt Diane. So I stopped talking for 6 years. The mask shattered. What came out was cold and ugly and real. She was never supposed to talk. She was never supposed to. Troy broke immediately. "I want a lawyer. A separate lawyer. I'll tell you everything." She planned all of it. Meredith turned on him with a look that honestly made me flinch through a screen. "You pathetic, spineless. Mrs. Whitmore. You're under arrest." Handcuffs clicked. She was still talking, still trying to manipulate the air around her as they walked her out. But there was nobody left to fool. I watched my sister disappear into the back of a police car through a laptop screen, and I felt Chloe squeeze my hand. "It's over," she whispered. "Yeah, baby. It's over." 2 weeks later, family court. Small room, fluorescent lights, a judge with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He reviewed everything. The fraud, the forgery, the poisoning, the 6 years of psychological abuse. Troy had signed away parental rights in exchange for cooperation with prosecutors. He'd known everything and done nothing. He didn't deserve the title of father, and somewhere in that weak, hollow chest, he knew it. The judge looked directly at Chloe. "Young lady, where would you like to live?" She stood up. 9 years old, 4 feet tall, purple dress she picked out herself that morning. "I want to live with my Aunt Diane. She's the only person who ever really saw me. Even when I couldn't talk, she listened." She read me books. She sat with me. She never once made me feel like something was broken. She paused. Also, she makes really good French toast. The courtroom laughed. The judge signed the papers. Walking out, Chloe would not stop talking. About the courtroom, about lunch, about a dog she wanted, about whether penguins had knees. 6 years of silence, and now she was making up for every single second, and I would not have traded that noise for anything on this earth. Meredith took a plea deal. Multiple felonies. The trust was frozen and audited. Most of the stolen money was recovered. I became sole trustee. I sold the family home, too many complicated ghosts, and put the money into Chloe's education fund. Last Saturday, Chloe and I had French toast on our apartment balcony. She was telling me about a dream involving a raccoon who ran a bakery and a very polite bear named Kenneth who kept apologizing for eating all the muffins. It made 0 sense. It was perfect. She stopped mid-story and looked at me. Aunt Diane? Thank you for listening. For real listening. Even when I couldn't talk. Always, sweetheart. Always. Sometimes the quietest people in the room aren't weak. They're just waiting for someone they trust enough to finally speak. Chloe found her voice. And I found my family. Now listen, everything you just heard is based on a real story shared on an online forum. With the original person's knowledge, I've changed names, locations, and details, and added some fiction to protect their privacy. But the core of it, the manipulation, the silence, the courage, that's real. And the psychology I broke down for you, that's documented, studied, and something every single one of us needs to understand. Because people like Meredith are out there. And the more you know, the harder they are to fool. If this story hit you somewhere deep, subscribe. I do this daily. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. There's another video on your screen right now that I think